Well, what a cracker of a gift the Indian startup ecosystem has received ahead of Diwali. On the 7th of November, Mamaearth became the first direct-to-consumer startup to list on the Indian stock exchanges and the first unicorn to go public after a gap of 18 months. Strong gains for venture capital investors, hope for some of the IPO-ready startups, and Mamaearth's listing has brought cheer to a somewhat knackered Indian startup ecosystem. With just $6 billion raised so far this year, funding has dropped to levels last seen in 2016-2017. This as per data from Venture Intelligence. Venture capital investors are sitting on a $20 billion pile of dry powder, which they are unwilling to commit just yet, and for good reason. It's been a tough year, one that's seen fraudulent or selective financial reporting. It continues to be a hard road to black for even the most valued startups. We'll have to wait for another 4 years to see half of India's 100-odd unicorns turn profitable as per Red Seer. And more than 17,000 employees were laid off in a bid to cut losses. Having said that, there's been some clear winners too. Online retail or e-commerce being one. 2023 marks the 10th year of e-commerce festive season sales. Just between Rakhi and Diwali, GMVs are projected to hit a record 90,000 crores, of which half came in the first week of the season. Artificial intelligence. That has also emerged as a big theme this year. 10% of the total funding so far committed to startups dabbling with AI. Fintech continues to see good traction, and enterprise remains a solid opportunity. So what does 2024 have in store for startups, and what will it take for investors to loosen the purse strings? Hello and welcome to this special edition of Young Turks, India's longest running show on startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Shereen Bhan, and before I bring in my guest for the day, here's wishing all our viewers and the Young Turks community a very happy and prosperous Diwali ahead. Joining us now, Kanwal Singh, Managing Partner and Co-founder Fireside Ventures, Madhu Shalini of Managing Partner at Rocketship VC, and Karan, Mohla, General Partner at B Capital. Madhu, Kanwal and Karan, many thanks for joining us. Here's wishing each one of you and your teams a very happy Diwali. Kanwal, I'm going to start by, with you, because yours has been the big story with the Mamaearth IPO. I remember you telling us that the investment into Mamaearth, that decision happened over a phone call, and you started with a 30 lakh rupee infusion?
That is true, Shereen. Thanks for having me, and happy Diwali to everyone. I mean, it's been, like I was saying, a very surreal journey with not just Mamaearth, but just the experience of the whole new age brand space that we chose to participate in the last 7-8 years. And yes, I met Varun on the phone, really liked what he was telling me. This was even before the business had started. And then I met Varun and Ghazal in Delhi, and just, fell in love with them and fell in love with the idea. And really, that's how the journey started with them.
What have you seen that's changed? What have you seen that gives you the confidence that this rally, this confidence that we are seeing has more legs to it? And what do you believe will drive growth from here on?
So actually, a lot of fundamental factors, Shereen. We believe that this is just the start of the journey. And honestly, there is so much potential to build on top of this, because India is a very unique market, huge consumption opportunity, but not enough brands. And one of the big challenges that I saw maybe about 7 years ago was that there is not enough infrastructurally the ability to build brands, selling mom and pop stores and doing really mass market kind of brand building. So in that context, we realized that digital infrastructure was actually disrupting the business of brands. And that was the intuition of getting in at that point of time. I think that was a point of time decision which really worked for us. Then COVID came, it accelerated the adoption of digital brands. And now the whole omni-channel, ONDC, quick commerce. So there are so many levers of growth. But fundamentally, the consumers are becoming smarter. They're looking for more choices. They want more interesting brands to consume. And just the infrastructure is playing into that positive demand. And that really excites us about the future.
Well, speaking of the future, and let me get Madhu into the conversation. If consumption is the bet that Kanwal is making, Madhu, as far as Rocketship is concerned, you are betting really on what's happening in the tech space, whether it's climate tech or space tech, and that's the kind of future opportunities that you're willing to invest in. What's looking good to you? What is the basis of the thesis that you're making, and what next now in that journey?
What we have seen to sort of dovetail to what Kanwal was saying is the D2C brands are doing really well in our data, but also things like space tech. So India is just such a hugely diverse startup ecosystem right now, which we're really excited about. And that's come with a foundational change in great startup founders, a great ecosystem that's now seeing IPO pipelines, and really excited to be seeing this IPO coming out of a very difficult last 2 years. But what we are now seeing is that there are entrepreneurs in the space realm. We are obviously investors in Agnikul, which is India's first private rocket ship. We are also seeing sort of climate out of India, and so the B2C to B2B to deep tech. It's a comprehensive, playing field right now in India, which is really exciting to a lot of international investors like us that has big bets in India, and we are going to continue to have big bets in India.
Where else are you witnessing a spike coming in on the algorithm that you could potentially look at writing out checks for?
Absolutely. I think fintech and e-commerce, seems to be the two big places that we are seeing a lot of activity in. And there is a lot of requirement in India for for disruptions, in terms of just the way that financial services are offered, both in B2B realm and the B2C realm. We continue to see activity there, and e-commerce is just hopping with a lot of different verticals, and D2C being one subsector of it, which we are now seeing. To Kanwal's point, there's just a lot of, there's a lot of population. Consumption is ripe in India with very few brands. India requires more brands, and there is just a lot of room and breadth for it, and depth for it as well. And so we are seeing it in different realms, in different spaces, and so D2C is something that we are seeing. Yeah.
Karan, let me come to you before we talk about specific bets. 2023, a year that you would like to forget. What's the outlook for 2024?
No, firstly, thanks for having me, Shereen. Look, I think it's been a very interesting year. It's been a year of very clear, distinct halves or 4 quarters, depending on how we want to look at it. I think the first half was with a lot of hangover from 2022 and a lot of the normalization that was required. I think a lot of that has already happened. What we've seen is a lot of green shoots over the last 3 to 4 months. I think Mamaearth's a phenomenal milestone as a part of that. Many more up ahead in terms of the pipeline, and quite excited about what lies ahead in 2024. There's a lot of things which will affect it at a macro level, which are not necessarily in any one person's control. But I think on the whole, excited about what lies ahead.
Yeah.
The consumption story will remain strong for the next 10, 20 years, without a doubt. I think there's 2 very distinct kinds of opportunities. One is the market within India, which is going to be larger, deeper for years, decades to come. And then there are the opportunities that start outside of India, right, which are built from India. And those are opportunities which were equal, whether it's cross-border SaaS from India to the US as a global fund. I think we're extremely bullish on that, have been from day one. Climate is another area, as Madhu mentioned, we're very excited about, have been investing in for the last few years. And then areas like, digital healthcare, where you have healthcare SaaS coming out of India, as well as, digital healthcare being built for India. So I think the pot of opportunities is growing exponentially. The number of entrepreneurs that we're seeing, company formation that had stagnated a little bit towards the end of last year is back up. And again, as I mentioned, the green shoots really is the positive sign taking out of this year. And that's kind of what, hopefully Diwali can, be the catalyst for in many ways going forward.
You're dealing with a couple of big, troubled companies, so to speak, whether it is Byju's at this point in time, which is perhaps the biggest one, and all eyes on how that finds itself out of trouble, or Pharmeasy, where we've seen a significant cut in valuations. And there are many others, and similar stories playing out across the system. Do you think the pain is behind us, and how many of these companies do you truly believe will be able to steer themselves out of the current turbulence?
Oh, look, that's a great question. I think part of that is the learning that's happened over the past 12 to probably 18 months at this point. There's a lot of correction and normalization that was needed, both in terms of governance, in terms of how businesses were being built, in terms of how investors and founders thought about building those companies going forward. So I think to a large extent that's come to where things are at the right place. There's probably a little bit more that needs to happen, going forward. But I think that's a constant evolution which will continue to need to take place. As an ecosystem, I think we're all learning, getting better, and learning from what's mistakes that have happened or challenges that have taken place. And I think that's where every year is hopefully better than the next. So there's probably a little bit more that's required in the system. But I think it's a lot of the positive elements coming out of Mama Earth, other such things. Look, Zepto is a great example of a company which was really written off in the minds of people, not literally, a year or so back, and they came back with full gusto. They've had, I think, the largest funding round from what I remember, or one of the largest funding. And that, I mean, that just shows the resilience and the persistence of founders. And I think that's the part that's in abundance, which is what all of us are very, very keen to double down on. And I think the opportunity in India, whether it's for India or outside of India, remains immense.
As we go through this process of cleanup, what do you believe the consequences are likely to be in case some of the larger ones are not able to, save themselves out of trouble?
I think I would agree with Karan. I think one has to be very pragmatic and very realistic about how you address this situation. And obviously, there has been a lot of euphoria, and the way some of these business models got built out were extremely aggressive. Grow at any cost, no concern on cash burn. But what at least I have seen, and if I may, a little bit on the fence, because we don't invest in specifically these the spaces, is that the consciousness of both investors and the companies has been extremely focused on getting the business model right, the basic shape of business right. And I think that is a great first step, because once the ecosystem starts focusing on the fundamentals of the business and what is it that is driving growth, and being conscious of the unit economics, conscious of profitability, I think that's a great first step. And a lot of companies are starting to see, we have seen some early shoots, Zomato, Nykaa, even some of the larger players, where they started now talking about bring profitable results. So I am actually quite optimistic that this is a great, almost silver lining out of a crisis that has happened over the last several months, which will actually augur well overall for our industry.
We are going to take a break here, Madhu, Karan and Kanwal on Young Turks, but don't go anywhere. We're back in a minute with a lot more. Stay tuned.